Good evening, everyone. It is Thursday,
Unknown participant
2nd,
is now joining.
and I am opening and calling to order the Concord School Board's public hearing number 1 on the budget. This is our first public meeting where we will have full public participation through remote means. So we're looking forward to having a conversation with the public and to hearing the presentation of the revised budget. Before we start, I have a brief statement that I need to read because of the manner in which we are operating. And I know there are a number of people entering the meeting, but I'll keep going through and reading the statement, and then I'll take the role of board members, and then we'll get started with the budget presentation. So as president of the Concord School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I'm confirming that we are first providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access by video and other electronic means. And specifically, we are utilizing Microsoft Teams for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through a number of means. First, dialing this phone number, area code 925-391-1169, conference ID 831-102-552#, by clicking on the link provided on the SAU.org website, or by watching the meeting on CCTV's education channel, which is Comcast Channel 6, or there's a live stream at www.youtube.com/ConcordNHTV. A recording of this meeting will also be posted on the CCTV's website. During this meeting, the board will take public comment in accordance with our policy number 136 by unmuting phone lines one by one during the public comment period. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Please make your comments shorter if possible to allow all interested parties to comment. We also encourage the submission of citizen comments via email at concordinfo@sau8.org. We have provided public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. So the board gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Microsoft Teams or telephonically. The meeting and pertinent instructions were posted in a legal notice that ran in the Concord Monitor on March 24th, 2020, and instructions have also been provided on the website of the board at sau8.org. If any member of the public has difficulty accessing the meeting or has any technical problems, they should call 603-513-9008. And in the event that the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. I don't actually anticipate that we'll have any votes, but there will be roll call if we take any. And so what I want to do is start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance of board members. And as we did on Monday, for members, when you state that you are present, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting, because that is required under the Right to Know law. So I will start with Ms. Cannon. Are you present?
I am present. I can hear and obviously speak to the meeting, and I'm alone in the room where I'm listening.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Cannon. Mr. Croto, are you present? Okay. Mr. Croto is not present. Mr. Crush, are you present?
I am present. I am here in the room. I can hear just fine. And my dog Gino is here beside me. But other than that, there are no humans in the room.
Great.
Jenny?
Thank you. Yes. Is that Tom?
It is me. I'm here and I have been. There's a problem with my mute button.
Well, we hear you fine now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Glad that you're here. Ms. Higgins, are you present? We will wait to hear if she arrives. Mr. Parker, are you present?
I am present and I'm alone.
Great. Thank you so much. Ms. Poinier, are you present?
Sorry, it's Liza. I am present and alone, just fumbling with the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought you were there. I saw you ready to sign in, so.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Richards, are you present?
I am here, I'm alone, and I can hear you quite well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ms. Smith, are you present?
I am here. I am also alone right now, and I can hear just fine.
Great, thank you so much. Let me go back to Ms. Higgins.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Ms. Higgins, are you present? So it sounds like everyone except Ms. Higgins is present. And I'm Jennifer Patterson. I am present. And no one is with me. Okay, so this is our public hearing on the budget. And as we usually do with our budget hearings, we will be hearing from the administration a presentation on the budget. And as those of you who have been following this process know, we have been working through the budget through February and March. What's happened most recently is that we have asked for the administration to take a real look at what modifications can be made to the budget, given the unprecedented situation that we find ourselves in right now. And so what we will see tonight has been posted for the past couple of days on the website, and it looks quite different from the posted budget that the board voted on a few weeks ago. And I think that budget reflected a lot of great ideas and a lot of work, but I think that many of those ideas, as we will hear tonight, will need to wait. Just given the times that we're in right now, it's not the time to do new things. Just a moment to speak about our budget process. We have this public hearing tonight. We have another public hearing at 5:30 on Monday. That hearing will end at 6:45, and we will commence our monthly meeting, which will look at our typical monthly meeting things, including most significantly the Concord High principals and the superintendent search. So those are not things that we're looking at tonight. Tonight, our focus is only on the budget. And then on April 13th, the board will meet to talk about the public comment we've received and to vote on the budget. We are lucky in that we will have an opportunity, as we always do in October, to revisit the budget. So, but it is important that we move forward with the budget at this time because of the need to issue contracts and to have the budget in place for next year. So with that, I think I'm ready to turn it over to the administration to present the budget, after which we will hear questions from board members, and then we will have public comment. So Jack and Frank, I will turn this over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. We're pleased to present this pass at the budget. As you've already mentioned, obviously the economic conditions and what the virus has done to us has created a whole new look in terms of what we feel is appropriate for our budget going forward. As you read in the paper, I'm sure we did slash up to $1.5 million off the current budget. You should also know, and Jack will talk about this more specifically, but we had to readjust what we thought valuations would be, what we thought revenues would be. There's a lot of moving parts to this. We're trying to do our best guess and sort of calculating, where we might find ourselves in the next month or two. Given that what we've done is to scale back most of the positions that we had talked about earlier. Yes, we did spend a lot of time creatively trying to figure out what would be great positions to bring to the school district as we look to raise our standards in all of our schools, and also to address some of the shortfalls that have been talked about during this past year. However, given the economic situation that we're now facing, we felt it was prudent to hold those thoughts over for another year. And so with that, I'll start with Jack. Jack will take you through some of the ins and outs of the preparation of the budget, and then I'll get into some of the more specifics about the positions that we had originally brought forward, which now have to be pulled back. Jack?
Okay, thank you. So just for your purposes tonight, again, just a quick overview of the 21 budget. We'll give some public information on where you can find all this if you don't know already. We'll have a section for public comment, and then we'll talk about the upcoming final meetings. This is where you can locate those files or this presentation tonight. And I wanted to just give you a high-level overview as of last Friday where we are. I think you were, the budget that was posted had about a $2.3 million change, 2.4, or a 2.85% increase over the prior year's budget. You could see now it is $1.5 million increase, so an $87.6 million budget. And these are the various, for expenditure, and these are the various revenues and how much they're going up or down at the moment. We're going to move on to some of those changes that have been made, and Frank's going to talk about that. This was specifically in the staffing. That had been none of this had been touched prior to the posting of the budget, but as he mentioned, with the new COVID-19 and the economic circumstances that have bestowed us, we felt it might be prudent to make some adjustments, but Frank can go through those positions for you.
You want to do that now? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So let's take them one at a time. So school compliance officer, I should say we're bringing a person forward as a former JAG officer who was stationed at the United States Naval Academy. She's going to be absolutely superb. We can't wait to get her on board. So once she's confirmed on the 6th, then we'll be able to start her immediately on the 7th, and she'll be with us for some time, we hope. We're very pleased to have her. So that is one position that we fought hard to maintain, and we're glad we kept it, and we feel that it's going to bring us huge dividends going forward for all kinds of reasons, which I don't need to go into. Next, you'll notice on the slide, the custodian. Again, we wanted to provide greater coverage, but we realize again that given the circumstances, that's just not a prudent choice for us at this point in time. So we reduced that particular position. The district nurse, there was a lot of talk about that. We went around and round about how best to solve that problem. And this, I know, doesn't solve it altogether, but we did keep that position in there. That is one position we did not withdraw. So you still had the floater nurse. We actually have a floater nurse on board right now, and that person will apply for the full-time job next year, but we're pleased to keep that position. Next, we had the family home visitor. Donna was very strong about that. It's a great position to have. We've scaled that back somewhat. You can see the numbers there. So we've scaled that back to at least keep some portion of the position available to us. The 5 special education teachers that we brought together, remember this was a combination position. We're trying to figure out what was the best way to satisfy the needs of the elementary schools. And again, it was a very creative approach, looking at some reduction in our non-certified staff, usually those individuals' positions that we weren't able to fill. However, again, in looking at the situation that we had in front of us, what we did is scale that back to 3. So we're only asking for 3 positions going forward. The reduction in certified staff that I just mentioned, that was 10 originally. We've scaled that back to 8, so we're only going to reduce those numbers by 8. And then permanent substitute, we're going to keep that as we have it. Reduction in the substitute account, you can see we have scaled that back somewhat. It was 107,000, now it's 96 that we're taking back from it. Social workers, we're keeping the 2 social workers. We feel that's a valuable position for us to maintain. The classroom teacher at Krista McAuliffe, we again looked at the numbers and still feel strongly that that position should remain. So we're keeping that one in there. Special education teacher at RMS, Again, this is one of those situations where we felt, I think we can get by without having an additional sped teacher at Richmond Middle School. You do know we spent a lot of time talking about Richmond Middle School, and I think we had a lot of nice ideas, but again, I think that's something we're going to have to wait for either next year or the year after. The occupational therapist, we're going to keep that. That was also at RMS and at Broken Ground. The guidance counselor, again, we fought long and hard to try and get that in. You know, we thought it was a valuable position. We want to create as much opportunity for students to be able to meet with their guidance counselors, and we don't want kids falling through the cracks. Can we survive next year without the guidance counselor? Sure, absolutely. So we did take that out, but again, the thought is next year we'd come back and ask to have that position, restored. Next would be the theater arts teacher at CRTC. We've asked Steve Rothenberg to see if he can absorb that position in the Perkins grant, which he has done. Jack can give you more clarification on that if you need it. The assistant principal, yes, I tried to champion that one at the middle school, again, for all the reasons that we had stated, but it's not something we can hold on to for this year, but I think it's something they're going to need down the road. Sabbatical coverage, this was not my idea. I was approached by Barbara O'Brien Lane, who called me and said, you know what, given the circumstances, I don't feel it's appropriate for me to accept the sabbatical, so I'm withdrawing my name from the sabbatical, which Jack and I just couldn't believe. This is what we've seen. A quick side note here. This is what we've seen all along. You all should know that all of our teachers, our ed assistants, Jess Jordan has reached out to Jack and me on a number of occasions. What can I do to help? Everybody has stepped up. Terry, his bus drivers. I mean, I just can't say enough good about what the entire staff has done here in the district to try to help support, the issues that we're trying to face. So, again, that was really nice of Barbara to bring that forward. And then we knocked out the other two positions that we're looking at here. One was an LPN and the other was increasing the hearing teacher's position. And so that brings us to our total, which, as you can see, is about $1.5 million less than what we had presented to you a couple weeks ago. Jack?
Some other adjustments that we made in this budget were the unemployment insurance. We were feeling pretty confident going in. We had spent, I think, about $14,000 year to date, had budgeted 35. We had dropped it to 25, and now we're upping it to 60. Even though we are not necessarily laying anybody off, there's people that work for us, there's people that had worked for us, and there's certain rules of how far they can go back and what wages they look at and what we need to contribute to. So right now, that's an unknown for us at the moment. I anticipate to see a spike towards the end of the year where I'd hoped that there'd be some savings, but that may not happen. There was also 2 software programs and a projector for Runlet. We have eliminated those, and we will see what the end of year balance looks like. Also, with the Fed doing what they've done with interest rates, we had been running at about between 2.45 and 2.65% interest on the $9 million that we have in the investment accounts. Well, now that those interest rates have tanked, we are not going to see the $125,000 we had hoped for, and now we're looking at potentially at 30. So that's a $95,000 decrease in revenue. The other piece is, as we mentioned before, the tax. What sets the tax rate for October ended on 3/31. What that real growth is, we don't know, but we lowered that anticipation. Just thinking that there may be more things that come forward with, even though now that has done, there's also an ability for people to put in for various abatements, and I don't know how that process works, but I've communicated and had enough discussion that I would want to be more conservative on that growth than where we were. So that all of that is contributing to where we are between those position changes and these changes to where that budget sits right now. So from a tax purpose standpoint, as you can see, we started out with a local rate of about 3.62 or $13.74. The budget we posted on the 5th was 2.64%. We're now down to 1.28. When you take the state and the local rate combined, instead of 2.74 or 1.89, we're down to a 0.72% increase. And as I mentioned here, I reiterate that real growth piece as well again.
I just want to go back to a couple of points that Jack raised that I think they're important to note too. So as we looked at the end of the quarter and what are our valuations going to be and how is the city going to do what it needs to do, we also have to look at what the federal government is going to do. And so you should know that I want to say $13.2 billion is coming directly to local schools across the country, and that's to offset some of the damage that we may have incurred over this crisis. There's another $30 billion is going to education in general throughout the country. How that gets dispersed, I don't know. But I think it's important to note that there may be some support coming from the federal government directly to the public schools. Secondly, speaking of grants, the state's in a similar situation. Not all of their monies have been able to be spent, and so by rule, I think we have up to either 12 or 18 months to spend on and spend any funds that have not been leveled to zero. And so we're looking at the possibility of being able to create one, maybe even two positions for next year, and this would go towards some of those positions that we lost during the initial budget presentation. So more specifically, would be able to generate perhaps a school psychologist or some other position like that in one or two of the elementary schools. We're going to look into that. So if we can do that, we will, but it will be at no district cost. It'll be through grants that we're able to recover from the state because the state wasn't able to spend down all of its money.
Okay. So, to close out our presentation, all this information is posted on the district's website, the sau8.org, School Board Budgets, 2021 Proposed Budget. There's a list of all the board members and their contact information, as well as to locate this on the website. And here is a link to the meeting for tonight and the upcoming meetings, along with clickable links to get to those meetings as well. And that leaves it for public comment.
Thank you, Jack and Dr. Val. I think before we move into public comment, I'd like to take questions from board members. And I may be able to see on my monitor if you're raising your hand, but if I'm not calling on you, then please say something and I will call on you if you have a question.
Hey, Jenny, it's Chuck.
Okay, Chuck.
All right. So if I'm not doing this correctly and not raising my hand, it's not due to being rude. It's the lack of my technical skill. So let me put that out there first and foremost.
No,
so,
you're perfect.
okay. So I may not be the most technical savvy guy around. So I'm wondering if, and look, given the current unprecedented disaster we're dealing with, both to our society as well as our economy, I want to commend the district on the thoughts they've made as far as relooking at the budget, adjusting downward, and things of that nature. My concern is, I have a couple concerns, but my concern is we've spent the last months hearing how critical a lot of, and I'm not saying I want to add everything back, so let me be clear. But we've spent the last months hearing how critical certain positions are. I've heard from parents, I've heard from constituents, I've heard from students. Please don't let that happen after the article to the patch of the proposed budget. I am concerned that we are, it's a fine line. I'm concerned maybe we are swinging too far to, being fiscally conservative in a troubling time, and I get it's a troubling time. It's easy to be reactionary. Trust me, it's very easy to be reactionary, given what the market's doing, and it's all over the board, and given our current economic conditions. However, I wonder, do we need to take another look at certain positions? I know this is the district's recommendation, and it's very, very lean, and kudos to Jack, and look, kudos to Jack and Frank and Donna and the administrators for everyone really taking it seriously. It was touching to hear about Dr. BK O'Brien and everything. However, I am concerned that maybe we're going a little bit to the other extreme. as far as cutting and being lean in the coming year. I mean, I'm a firm believer we will get through this, we will get out of this, and things will change. But by the same, and I'm also concerned for the taxpayers and people losing their jobs and kind of the economic conditions of the city of Concord. But it's also hard to take such a leap after hearing, we really almost felt like we couldn't breathe given a lot of these positions moving forward. So I guess I just have to state where I'm at with that. I have thoughts on individual positions, individual roles and jobs. I'm not going to go through that now, but I just wanted to put that out there and maybe see how other board members felt about that.
So Chuck, I'm wondering if I can turn your comment into a question for Dr. Bass for just a little bit more detail on how we might move forward that would enable us to make
Sorry. Sorry, my dog. I have a delivery coming. Sorry.
I think we've been having some conversations about how we may take some steps kind of towards where we want to be going, particularly where it pertains to student services, and so that it's not an abrupt rejection of some of the things that we've been talking about, but rather saying, let's be thoughtful about how we move forward in this process, maybe in some ways similar to what we did with full-day kindergarten, where it was something we very much wanted to do, but the circumstances were not such that we could do it immediately, but we spent some time really looking at it and working through the process of what it would look like. So I don't know, Dr. Bass, if there's anything that you can add at this point about how we might be proceeding, even in lieu of some of these positions.
Well, I mean, to Chuck's point and to your point, I mean, one of the biggest areas of concern was at the elementary level, and we talked long and hard about that. You heard some statements from the school itself. You heard from principals. There were some very significant concerns. So if I was to do anything in terms of reinstating positions, I would go back to the elementary level and look at those 5 positions that we originally proposed, which we brought down to 3. So certainly that'd be an area I'd go in. You should know that we've been having lots of conversation, Donna, myself, and the principals at the elementary level about how to divvy up those 3 positions, because there's 5 elementary schools. And so would it have been nice to have all 5 so each building would get one? Sure, absolutely. So those are areas that we can go back and look at. I'm not going to give a knee-jerk response, but certainly give you that there's room for us to go back and rethink how we might be able to recalibrate those positions at the elementary level, because that was our biggest area of concern. I think the administrative positions can hold. I think the guidance counselor at the high school can probably hold. But if I had to pick a spot where I would be most concerned, it would be at the elementary level.
Great, thank you. And I guess I'm wondering, are we still thinking about possibly going forward with a study as well? I don't know if we've talked about that or
I'm
not.
glad you mentioned that. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I was contacted by Nate Levinson's folks. I haven't had a chance to get to you all yet because we've been doing other things, but they would like to sit down and talk to us as early as May 6th, I think is the date that I have, for us to talk about going forward with that. I mentioned this to Jack, and I can't remember if I mentioned it to others, but there are a couple ways that you can pay for that service. One is to use leftover monies from this year and then do the same at the end of next year, or you can actually budget for it. It's going to be a 3-year process, but they're ready to start with us right now, and I think we could go into this summer with I think he wants to put together a team. The team would be consisted of folks here in the community and in the schools to look at both the Bill White services as well as the total special education program here, and that would kind of launch that initiative into gear. He really wanted to do that over the summer such that when the fall hit, everybody would knew what their marching orders were in terms of how to proceed forward, as opposed to starting in the fall when folks are trying to get their classes up and running and they're trying to set the agenda for how the year is going to go. So if I was to make a recommendation for that, I would suggest that we do that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think that makes a lot of sense, and it is similar to what we did with the full-day kindergarten, where we looked at early childhood in a more comprehensive way. And I think if we can look, regardless of whether or not we put in those additional 2 positions, if we look at the manner in which we're delivering those services, it's certainly something that will help us be confident in our program and also be confident that we are not having an overlap or, that we're coordinating our services well, that there's an overall vision.
Jenny, can I ask a question?
Yes.
David Parker. I would want to, first of all, thanks everybody thanks Jack and the administration for adjusting the budget. I appreciate that. This Nate Levinston thing, I don't know that I've really been briefed on what's involved, and I didn't realize it was a 3-year process. Is that a 3-year process for them to come to conclusions? What is the nature of that? What is the cost? It's probably something very valuable to look at, but I don't know that at the board level we've been briefed on what that is, or maybe I just wasn't listening.
I think that you're right, Dave. So there were some preliminary conversations that were going on just before everything got so complicated.
Right.
And it was something that would be brought to the board. It's not included in the current budget, but probably it's something that we would look at next month, in terms of whether we can find some funding to do it in a gradual way and gain a better understanding of it. So we're definitely not committing to it tonight, or we wouldn't be committing to it in adopting this budget,
Right.
but it would be something that we could think about in the overall context of, as Chuck put it, if we're cutting back maybe further than we hoped we would pair that with committing to looking at kind of the efficacy of our programs going forward as well.
Yeah, and curious, wasn't that more about it is in the student services area? And so from what I understand, what that means that we are going to continue with the Bill White contract as it exists?
Yeah, so
I think that's what's presented in this budget. Yeah, sorry, Dr. Russ, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think what we did is to try and go back and scale back as much as we could with the Bill White services. I want to say that Donna was able to pull out upwards of $50,000 of what was in the original budget. So we did do that. Secondarily to that, the whole reason for looking at a Nate Levinson type proposal was to get a outside evaluation of the need for Bill White services, as well as is there a better way or a more effective way for your special ed services to continue? And so that what I thought would be a good way to give a overall district viewpoint of how we're providing student services in the most effective way possible.
I agree with that. I just wondered, I didn't realize it was a 3-year process, and then we are obligated, to Bill White services that had some questions or practices. I don't want to dwell on this. I just don't feel well versed on it, and it can come at a later point. Thank you.
Let me just add one point for clarification, if I could. So I did say 3 years. That's at the outer edge. So it could be as early as 2 years. It all depends on how things go. Secondarily to that, on the Bill White services, so within that first year, you're going to know if that's something you really want to continue or not. And so somewhere around November, December of next year, the board and the superintendent would be in a position to say, is this something we really feel we want to continue? And if not, why not? Do we want to scale it back? Do we want to do it only as a tool that helps train teachers in certain areas? Or do we want to abandon it altogether? So I think you would be in a position to make a good determination on what you want to do with Bill White services before next year is out. When Nate Levinson says it takes 2 or 3 years, it's to do the whole package and to be in a position where you walk away and say, thank you very much, we now know where we need to go with our system. And just to be clear, they don't stay with you. They don't put people in here. They're strictly an analysis group that goes in and tells you what their recommendations would be going forward.
So this is Barb speaking. Everything sounds great. So long as we have that flexibility to assess and evaluate, I'm comfortable with it. I, like David, don't want to be locked into something that we can't change if we need
to. Yeah, well said.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. And Gina, I know you had raised your hand before, so go ahead, please.
Yes, I was wondering about the funding coming from the state, potentially. And the school psychologist, because the funding that would come from the state would be a one-time thing, is that correct?
Yeah, it would be grant funded and would be leftover monies, and then after that, we'd have to put it into the budget. That's correct.
Right, okay, so I would caution using that as as funds to hire somebody long-term, since it's a one-off.
Yeah, good point.
Great, thank you, Gina. Other questions or comments by board members?
Yeah, Jenny, it's Chuck. Just two things. And again, I am probably not the savviest guy around technically, so I meant to raise my hand. So two things. One is, so given, I guess my question first of all is related to Bill White. So I'm sure every year that we use Bill White, his services go up, just given the cost of inflation and everything, by a percentage. Is that correct?
I don't have those figures in front of me, but that certainly makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me too, and I would not be shocked, and nor would I be, given our long-standing relationship with Bill White, and given the fact of our current pandemic crisis, I would request that Bill White should probably freeze his rates per service versus going up this coming year, because just as BK O'Brien kind of withdrew her and made a very strongly ethical decision. I guess my question is, what has Bill White done for us, given the fact we've been in business with him for X number of years? So that's point one. Point two is my question regarding, I'm sorry. I had one more point, and maybe I'm getting feedback. Question number two is the teacher of the hard of hearing and deaf. That, and I know there's students not getting services. I think it was a $32,000 impact on the budget. I guess I would also request that we relook at that position. It was currently a 0.6, and we were going to make it a 0.8, which is what it was initially. I think 2 years ago, if memory serves correct. And I know that student enrollment has not gone down, so I would ask that we take another look at that.
Sure. Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Jack. I mean, Chuck in my mind. Yeah, it was a 0.8 position. It went down to point. It went down to 0.6, and then we had, before this calamity hit us, we had bumped it back up to 0.8. And that was certainly at the recommendation of our Director of Special Services, Student Services. So, yeah, absolutely, we can take a look at that. It's not a huge hit, but again, just so everyone understands our motivation, we were just trying to scale back, and anything that wasn't absolutely necessary, we felt we would hold the line on. But I'm glad we're having this conversation.
The fact that it had been there, yeah. And the Bill White thing is concerning, too. Like, I guess my point is, if you're in a business partnership with someone, a relationship for a long period of time, and we have been with Mr. White, I would hope that he would certainly make some financial accommodations given this pandemic crisis.
I will certainly ask, Chuck.
Yeah, so Chuck, I think that's something that we may need more information on. I'm not sure, let's look into it, and hopefully by Monday we'll know whether the rates are going up or not.
Sure, I understand that.
Okay.
Hey, Jenny? Jen?
Yes, Jeff.
It's Tom Proto.
Oh, Tom, please go ahead. Yep.
So I'm going to go way back to Chuck's first question and concern and talk about our ability to adjust our budget in October. So I know that in the past, at least in my past 8 or 9 years, we've never really adjusted that budget up a whole great deal when it comes to October. But given the extraordinary circumstances that we're living in right now, we could possibly take a good hard look at what we could do for some of those positions, particularly the ones that Dr. Bassett mentioned with regard to the elementary level and others in October. Is that correct?
Jack?
Well, I think the only thing you got to think about is what your hiring prospect pool going to look like waiting till
point.
October.
That's an excellent
I
point.
got you. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the only
and-
tough.
and,
That's the biggest tough part I would say, because people will be under contract.
And I guess the question may be, how much certainty do we have that some money might come our way? I mean, to Gina's point, I don't think we want to hire people using one-time money. But if it seems that there will be a sustained increase in funds for schools over kind of a longer period of time, then we may be able to do that. And if there, it seems like there's a likelihood of that, maybe we put some of those, maybe the special ed positions back in, but I don't know. I mean, clearly we want to hear public comment, and I think part of the reason this discussion is a little more free-ranging is that we as board members are seeing this new iteration for the first time and are very appreciative and mindful of the fact that it's a great effort to scale it back to the minimum that we need, which really does seem appropriate under the circumstances.
Yeah, if I could just go back to Gina's comment, which parallels what you just said, the whole issue of the state monies that we get. You're right. I mean, the more we think about this, the more it seems to be like maybe those monies would be better served using for direct services at a given point in time, as opposed to hiring individuals. If we get the money and there's extra there, which is great, we can certainly use that for direct services that we have within our schools. And there's a variety of ways in which that can come into play. But I think Gina's right. The more I think about that, the more dangerous that becomes, because you're in a sense you're getting it for free, so to speak, but you're going to pay down the road. And who knows what our position is going to be in 2 years or 3 years, whatever it is that those monies run out. So I think we're in a safer position if we budget for positions that are coming out of our monies as opposed to the state or other grant-funded monies.
Great, thank you. Other board members with questions or comments? And Tom, did you have more that you wanted to say?
No, I'm fine. I agree totally with Frank. If we get those monies, then we get them, and if we don't, we don't. And we stay the course right now.
Right.
Great, thank you. I'm not seeing or hearing any other board members, so I think.
So Jenny,
Right.
this is Jim. I'd like to just
Oh, yeah. Yep,
jump in
yep.
here, and
Yep.
and I would like to reiterate. I think I was going to agree with Gina, but it seems Frank's agreed as well. And I might have a question for Jack, and that is, the state is giving us this money because we have some rather extraordinary actions being taken. And are there expenses associated with this item? And is there something associated with this that we will be anticipating a charge on, or expenses associated with our remote learning or any of the other things?
I don't think so.
Specifically, when you talk about state, I'm kind of figuring it's not really state money; it's federal money just being fed through the state government.
Right.
So, what that'll be divvied up to, we've heard a little bit about the remote learning and being able to supplement that. So it could be for equipment. Obviously, we've let a lot of devices go home, although they're all tagged and they're controlled by the district. We expect that there's going to be some seepage. That's just impossible to send 4,500 devices home and not have something happen to these equipment. And how people are responsible for that, we'll have to see. But that's something to consider. And we'll have more of a conversation maybe when the night you get to the vote. But the other thing is, it's beyond next year. FY22, if you remember the $900,000 from the state, are they going to have it to give? As I read, the lottery sales down, that funds education. Meals and room tax down,
Right.
that funds education. I'm more concerned about, smoothing into this year. Then what's the following year look like? New Hampshire retirement's up for its assessment, considering the ravages of the stock market. What are those investments going to look like? Because remember, investments and employee contributions are what make that, and they need to hit their 7% return on investment. And if they don't, you know where those rates are going. And you have negotiations next year. All the things just that we're thinking about.
Thank you for keeping us mindful. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Jim, more.
Thank you, Jack, and I appreciate the fact that it is federal money that would be funded through the state, but I'd be really conservative in, looking ahead on that money because I'm sure we have some unexpected expenses coming.
Yeah, good point, Jim. Gina, did you have your hand up?
No, I just didn't want Jim to get lost in the shuffle.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yes, I can't see everybody, so if I'm not calling on you, please speak up, because Jim, somehow your little circle wasn't on my screen.
This is Dave Parker. I have just a,
Go ahead. Dave.
I think this is, excuse me, unforeseen what's going to happen over the next month or so in terms of how people are going to respond to this, pandemic in terms of the social emotional costs and what is going to be put on the district to help to mitigate that. And I just, think that probably if we do get resources, I'm not sure that we won't require additional support for our families and kids and staff, given the extreme circumstances everyone's putting themselves through, and an enormous amount of extra work and commitment from everyone. But I do worry, because I'm a worrier again, about how we're going to be able to respond and what are the unforeseen consequences of that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. And I think that is why we're lucky that we get to look at it again in October, just because we'll have more information about the overall impacts.
Right.
Okay, thank you, board members. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, it's Liza. So going back to the beginning and the list of positions and thinking about when the list was first presented, the new special ed staff at the elementary level were basically, if I'm remembering this right, the reduction in the non-certified staff. There were 10 positions that were going to be removed from non-certified, and then there were 5 being added. So, and that was a trade, I think. You can confirm or deny that. So now we are reducing non-certified we're still reducing them by 8, but we're only getting 3 new special educators for elementary. So I just wanted to hear a little bit about if that's sufficient, and I completely agree with this conversation that's taken place in the last 5 minutes. I think we need to be super careful. But that's the one place where I wonder if we're taking away more than we're adding in. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I think that's an issue that we're going to have to look at. We scaled it back, as I said earlier, to respond to what was out in front of us. And now I think part of this conversation is, well, given the issue where we think it's most desirable, that's at the elementary level, is there a way for us to rethink some of that? And certainly we can look at that. We can go back to the original proposal and then kind of tinker with that, which was, as you already mentioned, Liza, it would be 10 uncertified positions that would be reduced that would help pay for the 5 positions that we'd like to hire. And I think it was, Jack's got the exact numbers, but I want to say it was about a $300,000 savings, and so it cost us about $200,000 to get the 5 positions. But Jack can give you more detail on that. And I don't know if it's really necessary to go through that detail at this point, but I think your point is, could we relook at that and see if there was a better way to try and reformat those positions in a way that is obviously cost prudent?
Can I address that?
Yes, please, Tina, go ahead.
My understanding was that those non-certified positions were budgeted for, but were never filled because we could not find staff to fill it.
That's correct.
So we didn't actually take anybody offline by taking away those 10 or those 8 positions.
That's correct.
We're simply moving money from a line item that never got spent.
Yes.
To a line item that will get spent.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, that was my understanding too. Thank you, Gina. Well, we as board members will have a further opportunity to have this discussion. unless there's someone else from the board who'd like to speak, I think we want to move forward into the public comment period. So one last chance for board members during this meeting. And so this will be our first go-around with actually taking public comment. And Jack, I guess I'm going to turn it over to you. Let me preface by saying our policy number 136, which is referenced there, we are always eager to hear from the public. We do have a 5-minute limit. I don't know how many people there are on the line. It looks like there are not a whole lot of people who have joined electronically, but there may be people who have joined just by telephone. And so we very much want to hear from members of the public. I will ask Jack to make it an orderly process of unmuting lines one by one, and let's see how this works. We also welcome comments by email, and let's give this a try. So Jack, go ahead.
Sure. So if I look down the right, I see my name, I see Barb, I see Chuck Crush, and then I see Mr. Marcus. So I am going to well, he can unmute himself if that's okay, if they wish to speak, because it doesn't say I can. But
thank you, but I do not wish to comment. I do appreciate the comments made by the board members.
Right.
I will comment very briefly that, I guess if there are ways of having personnel, I think that is important. And I do think that I appreciate the comment made earlier about the future. And if you have money that's just temporary or one-time money, that you have to think about that, but I do think that you could make interim positions. That might be a solution for some of that, and that's something to consider as well. Aside from that, I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much
Thanks.
for participating in the meeting.
okay, if I work down that side, I see, let's see, Danielle Smith, Dave Parker, Donna, Frank, Gina, Jenny. Let me see if I can see anybody else. I'm going to minimize the screen. Hopefully I don't goof up. No, I see Josh, Liza, Matt, and Pam. And let me see if I can go down a little further. Tom Croto. And I do see an 860 number. So that number.
Barb Higgins is here.
Thank
Are
you,
you-
Barb. I noticed that you
That's
joined
Barb.
at 7:15.
Is that-
Does that sound right?
I wonder if that's her at 860-230. Did you dial in? Okay.
Yes, she did.
Okay.
No, I'm online.
Oh, she's online. Oh, okay.
I don't see you, so but that's okay. Well, we know you're there. Oh yeah, you're up top. I'm sorry. There you are. So there is a
Of
number,
course I'm on top.
860-230-5732. So I don't have an identification, but they're welcome to speak.
Jack, you may have to unmute them.
They did. They just unmuted themselves, whoever it is.
Okay. Yes, I'm the 860 number.
Okay, excellent. Could you identify yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Zeus Simeone. I live up here on School Street. I've got a couple kids in the high school.
Great, go ahead. We would love to hear your comments.
Okay. First of all, I want to find out if this was acceptable for comments, things that weren't necessarily about the budget.
I think that's more appropriate for our monthly meeting on Monday. So we're having a monthly meeting on Monday at 7 o'clock, and we'll hear comment on other topics. So tonight, we're really looking for comments on the budget.
Oh, okay. Again, I'm just trying to familiarize myself with how this new online thing is, since it's new to all of us.
Yes.
All right. Well, I will save those for the Monday meeting. You said that at 7 o'clock as well?
That one's at 7 o'clock, and
Yes.
there is information posted on the website on how to participate, but we will be running it in the exact same manner that we ran this meeting. So we will absolutely have public comment.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
I've scrolled up and down the bar. I don't see anybody else. I think I've captured anybody, and if I haven't, please chime in.
Is there anyone joining just by phone? I know we had that opportunity.
I don't see anybody.
Right.
I think that's why you see the 860 number. I think
Oh,
they
okay,
called in.
yeah.
That's why it's a phone, I think.
Yep.
But
So, and I'm checking my email. I'm not seeing any emails at this time. Well, I know we're being broadcast live, and so if there are folks,
Zeus Simeone.
Is now exiting.
so if there are folks who are watching this on the CCTV, please do contact us via email. We welcome emails. We also welcome participation at the second public hearing, which will be on Monday, April 6th at 5:30. And there's call-in information on our website. So Jack, I guess you were going to go through those meetings as well. So let you do that with the slides.
okay. Oh yeah, let me get that. So the upcoming meetings are, tonight was this public hearing on April 6th at 5:30. We'll have another virtual public hearing, just very similar to this, same agenda. And then on April 13th, we will be looking for the board to have discussion and pass a budget. And we need 5 votes in the affirmative to do that. Again, all these meetings will be virtual. They're all
Thank you,
posted.
Jack. And again, it's not listed because it's not part of the budget, but we also will have our regular monthly meeting at 7 p.m. on April 6th, and we will have our agenda of approving minutes from our past meetings. We'll also consider the nomination for the CHS principal and for the compliance administrator, and we'll have an update on our superintendent search and how that process will look going forward. So we will take public comment at that meeting as well, and we look forward to having public participation.
Okay.
Anything else for tonight? So seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. That's Barb.
So moved by Barb,
I'll second it.
and who seconded it, Dave?
Yeah.
Okay, and we need roll call vote, not for a motion to adjourn.
Correct.
So all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.
Adjourning.
And
Thank you, everybody.